Hello, slots enthusiasts. How are you? My name is John Friedel. Welcome to Professor Slots, a channel devoted to mastering casino slots so you can win your way to success. Maybe you've won many hand pays already, and maybe you haven't won any. Either way, there's always the possibility of a bigger jackpot than you've ever had. Maybe you've won hundreds of dollars, but are shocked when you first win thousands of dollars. Or maybe you've won thousands of dollars, but then you find out what it's like to win a jackpot worth tens of thousands of dollars. As you master casino slots, excuse me, through these live streams and my other content and consultations, I expect you to win more and more often. Like Steve from North Carolina, who commented, excuse me, who commented in the live chat recently that he'd won over 50 hand pays in the last year based on my content. Imagine what that must have been like. And I've been there. It kind of blows your mind. So it's important to be prepared in advance to win big. Shock, awe. Oh, hey, we got a winner. Thank you, Chuck, for the show that. Thank you, Chuck, for the $20 super chat. He has added a 5 cents to it because it's the fifth time he's done that. So he's given a total of $100 during these last 5 live chats that he's been on. That's wonderful. Feel free to do the same. It supports the show, supports my business to keep it going. As many of you know, I was laid off just over 3 months ago, and I've got maybe a year left, maybe the end of next year, January of 2022, to be able to replace my low six-figure aerospace engineering salary. So, every little bit helps, and I do very much appreciate it. Thank you, Chuck. So it's important to be prepared in advance to win big. Shock, awe, and confusion was what I went through to learn this myself, but your experience doesn't need to be like that. Today, we're going to be diving into what it's like to win a big hand pay. So it's great to see you all here again, that's coming up. It's great to see you all here again for another Professor Slots podcast episode on live stream. If you're with us live, be sure to say hello and ask your slots related questions. I'll get to those a little later in the show. Right. So, are you ready? Are you ready to win $1,000, a $60,000 slot machine jackpot? Are you sure? From making the bet to income tax preparation, I'll go over everything you'll be faced with having to deal with. One of my biggest issues with slot machine casino gambling has been the surprises. I would win an unexpectedly large jackpot, and it was just so far outside of my experience. So I've had to go through all this and learn the ins and outs. And I'm sure there's more to learn. Some of what I learned was very specific to me. I was living in I had local income taxes for the city I was living in. I don't know that everybody has that. So, it's all very specific often. Anyway, we'll talk about some of that, and then hopefully you can share more in the comments, live stream, or the podcast listeners can reach out to me through email, or 702-90-SLOTS is my voicemail, which also accepts text messages. Right. So one of my biggest issues with slot machine casino gambling has been surprises like winning a very large jackpot. Of course, it's possible to win big jackpots. We all know that's possible. So why not be ready? Here's what to expect if you win big. I won 90 taxable jackpots in 9 months in a U.S. state, Ohio, where slot machine jackpots became automatically taxable at $1,200. I sometimes call this a taxable limit, but it's all taxable. So it's the automatically taxable limit of these. But of these hand pays, only three of them exceeded $10,000. On average, 1 in 30 of these 90 jackpots exceeded $10,000, and they were very evenly distributed. My 90 taxable jackpots, it was right around what, 30 and then 60, and then towards the end, I got another one. So it wasn't like they were all right there at the beginning of the 90. It was even, pretty nicely distributed. I suppose I have another 30 I've gotten more taxable jackpots than the 90, but I'm not yet up to 120, because they, sold the casino, and I've been working on the book and other things. So, right. So when I get to 120, I'm gonna see if it holds true, but it will be a different situation, with all the casinos being sold. So let me make sure that goes away. Right. So my first, and this does not include the $40,000 cash option I got for winning a car at the end of those 9 months. My first big jackpot was for $27,000. I was stunned. So far, this is my largest, even now, this is my largest jackpot won playing slot machines. I won it early on Saturday, December 21st, 2013 at 5:40 a.m. at Horseshoe, Cincinnati. 5:40 a.m. when I got there, not too much before that. So that would be which one? Which strategy, number 5 or number 6? It wasn't the day after a holiday. It was close to holidays, December 21st, right? Christmas is 25th. So it wasn't a holiday, a few days away. Big promotions beforehand. Saturday, Friday night, Friday before, the Friday before Christmas. What do you think? Casino had a big promotion? Sure. So I was there to test that, actually. But Horseshoe Cincinnati has since been purchased and renamed Cincinnati Casino until recently. Then it was sold again last year, and only recently have they put up the signs saying Hard Rock Cincinnati. So it takes like 6 months for new owners to put up signs after the purchase, which you can find out about on a W2G, and you can be one of the first to know. Right. I remember getting my WT jackpot and looking at it going, you guys sold? And that was all you knew about it, unless you're reading the financial reports, I suppose. So anyway, I won this $27,000 hand pay on a red, blue, white sevens slot machine. This is in the high limit room. I'd made a maximum bet, 2 credits, on a $10 denomination slot machine. So I was checking to see if I could cycle my bankroll on this slot machine. I was testing to see if it was a winning slot machine. Now, this was 3 symbols, physical reels, that type of machine. But some people lately, and some of the messages I've been getting and the conversations I've been having, of calling it old style. They have always been there, but these new penny machines with 6 foot high, 3 foot wide video screens, with all the stuff that's going on there, those are really becoming something else, right? But this was a physical reel, 3 reels, a slot machine, 2 credits, $10 denomination. I made a $20 bet. So it was a moment that I remember clearly. It was very early in the morning. I'd started my session at about 4 a.m. and had already won a small hand pay. So it was my second of that morning. So I started about 4 o'clock. By 5:40, I was on my second hand pay. I figured it was a good time to go, right? That's 2 hand pays in an hour and 40 minutes, not including maybe 20 minutes for processing the first one. So 2 hand pays in just over an hour. Anyway, moving away from winning slot strategy number 5 or 6. One's holidays, one's promotions. Anyway, I remember it clearly. I remember seeing someone win their own hand pay behind me, but I couldn't see how much. I knew it had to be over $10,000 though, because that hand pay was not serviced by 2 slot attendants. So, the primary slot attendant and the verifier. If you haven't had a hand pay, well, now you have 2, except you don't have 2 slot attendants when you win over $10,000. A floor manager was there with the slot attendant during their hand pay. So that's why I know it must have been over $10,000. As the floor manager and slot attendant walked away from uh, taking care of that hand pay, they began walking by me. Just as they, and this is kind of detailed, but just as they approached, my $27,000 jackpot hit. I looked down, saw the 2,700 credit hit, and a $10 slot machine, $10 denomination slot machine, and looked up at the floor manager looking at me and swore. I mean, that was embarrassing. I don't usually swear, but at that moment, I felt the need to do so. I'll have you know a little bit of personal stuff about me. I find I do the same thing when I slide into a ditch. I have it. So, and I don't do it enough to eliminate my bad habit. But anyway, but at that moment, I felt the need to swear. So I swore right while looking the floor manager in the eye. He kept walking, now with a frown. I called out to him to explain, "Excuse me, sorry about that. I didn't mean to swear, but I just won a jackpot, a really big jackpot." And they came back. Right about then, within a few seconds after the slot machine hit, I basically went into shock. Since I seriously, not pretending. I mean, I didn't have a heart attack or anything like that, but I could tell it was surreal. I mean, it was what's going on? I parachuted once, uh, once, um, and it's not courageous unless you go a second time. But I remember, this was back in the day. I was 17, and you had to have. Nowadays, you have to have someone in your back, and they take care of all the business, and you just enjoy the ride. But back then, they had the hook and the cable, and you got out all by yourself, and jumped off out of the plane, off the wing, off the little stand they have above the wheel. And you're holding the strut for the wing up there, and you're just like, let go. and I kind of went into shock there. It was the same kind of shock. And years later, I won that $27,000 jackpot, and I had the same feeling of, what? Since I'd started gambling again after nearly 10 years. This was, wow, 7 years ago now. Was it 7 years ago yesterday? No, 21st, another week. 1 week from today, 7 years ago. So right about then, within a few seconds, I went into shock, and then but since I'd started gambling again, just a few weeks before, after nearly 10 years of not gambling, my biggest jackpot up to that point, in the few weeks beforehand since I'd started again, was $5,000. I'd won it. I won $5,000 3 times over the last, call it a month. It was more like 3 weeks. Let's see, it was November. Oh no, it was December. So it would have been about a month. Yeah, month and a week. 6 weeks. I was at 5 weeks of gambling yet there. So okay, so it was those $5,000 wins. All 3 of them were kind of hard on me. Here I am winning $5,000 hand pays, and I'm like, what? I won 1,200 was fun the first time, and I think the first one was like 3570, something like that. And so that was like, wow. And then 5,000 later, that first day was my last jackpot, my 7th that day. And when I first got started, and I was just like kind of reeling from that. But the 27,000, I was like, I have like a $500 car. I could buy a pretty good used car. I was just like, amazing. So, yes, I remember it quite well. I know we all like to reminisce about, if we have one, reminisce about our first hand pay, but this is my first big hand pay, and it's also something I reminisced about. Was 5 times larger than what highest had ever gotten before, more or less. Yeah, 5 times larger than so it wasn't easy. I remember telling the floor manager how unreal and dreamlike it felt. I even asked the slot attendant to pinch me. She did. It didn't help. And after the hand pay, I had trouble deciding what to do next. Should I just go on with my day? Should I stick to the plan I had in mind? Or was my plan of gambling all day ruined. Hint, you're done. Go home. Can you imagine how I was feeling? I know some of you can indeed imagine it. I know some because some of you have won even bigger jackpots while playing slots. Um, uh, yeah. Are you ready to win a big jackpot the next time you play a slot machine? To be ready, you'll need some basic essentials like your government issued ID. But there are other ways you probably want to be ready, which we'll go over in a moment. You'll need the government issued ID to receive a taxable jackpot at a casino. That's crucial. If you don't have it with you, nice casinos, well, I've seen this happen, nice casinos will let you go to your car for it. But I don't think you should count on the casino letting you go home for it. That locks up the machine for an hour or whatever, and or more, and they can't really afford that. It's more than the price of the jackpot. So if you're anything like me, you might find out yourself. Find yourself not being quite yourself after winning a big jackpot. To be ready, think it through in advance. Make yourself a plan. Then, if or when it happens, all you need to do is remember the plan. My martial arts instructor used to talk about that. We'd practice, we're all friends. We'd practice techniques and rolling and, kicking and punching with pads or not with pads and, shadow boxing sort of thing. And sometimes he'd sit us down and say, are you ready? Are you ready for it not to be a friend? Are you ready for it to be serious? We practice an hour, 3 times a week. And if you actually get in trouble where you need that sort of thing and can't get out of it, all you've done is practice with friends, people you love and care for. Some preparation is great, and more preparation is often better. So to be ready, think it through in advance, make yourself a plan. Then, if or when it happens, all you need to do is remember the plan. It doesn't have to be a complicated plan. Just ask yourself this simple question. After you get the hand pay, will you stay or will you go? There will be more decisions to make, but that's really the most important one. At least it is to me. As I tell my college students, I don't care what your plan is. I care that you have a plan. And we're not having a career discussion right now, but I think you get the point. Will you leave the casino or will you make a day or night or day and night of it? Personally, I'd leave. I'd leave as soon as I could. I didn't know that in advance. I did not know that in advance of my biggest jackpot, but I do now. That's my plan. What's yours? Comment in the live chat or on this video if you're watching it later. If you're listening on the podcast, leave a voicemail or send a text message at 702-90-SLOTS. Area code 702-90-SLOTS. And I'll, respond and let me know about your experience. So let's check in with the live chat to briefly say hello. Wow, lots of comments. Greetings, everyone. Yep. Rudy is here. Rudy's been sharing more than a few pictures of his wins. I think he's up to maybe 2 hand pays now, 1 or 2. But a lot of the wins are under the $1,200 automatically taxable limit. Steve is here. Good morning, Steve. Steve is in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Yes, Rudy, good morning. Rudy has an interesting way of playing slots. It works for him. He feels his way through it, and he says, "I have a feeling I will win a big jackpot soon." Good luck, Rudy. I'm sure we'll see pictures later. Hey, Joseph, Joe. Joe is in Arizona. Welcome. Let's see. Rudy shared that it's been 1 month since his last hand pay. Trying to repeat that on the same machine, same time of the day, same day of the week. You can do that for 4 or 5 weeks, and you'll find yourself with better odds. At some casinos, do this for their own reasons. They're doing something else. Actually, the crowd is coming through, and there's something going on. Then, yeah, just be careful. Let's see, tomorrow is not a holiday. Was 1 month ago a holiday? As long as it's not too different of a day, that's something you definitely want to check. When it works, and it works great. And I've done that. I was able to do that. One casino didn't have any effect at all in another casino next door. But when it works, that's what from then on, that's what you do until they get a new owner. Like that's what Horseshoe Cincinnati had. So you might try other horseshoes around the country for that particular technique of coming back, walk away, come back later at the same time, maybe 5 minutes earlier or a week later. Everybody's interested in the slot strategies. There's videos on these that are available. And Magpie says his biggest jackpot was $15K. And let's see, a 2x10x5 $5 machine. The 3 reels, 2x, 10x, 5x. That was the winning combination. Yeah. Michael, here's a question. Does the hidden casino reminder or sale get any notice or effect in the reports of any? If you go to professorslots.com/ABC27, let me see if I can type that in for you to answer your sort of answer your question. It's a great way to see this. So ABC27, professorslots.com/ABC27. That's a shortcut. That'll take you to the ABC Evening News website for Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where they interviewed me last year. And they did an investigative reporting episode. It's like 7 minutes long or something about the Hollywood casino. It's called Penn National in Harrisburg. And I talked to them about state returns and all this. And this was a newly opened casino, I don't know, 10 years ago. And it got a lot of people into it by being winner. And then nobody has been winning a lot lately, and there's a lot of complaints. So they did this news article on it, and he went through I showed him the return statistics. Pennsylvania offers those by month or by year. Anyway, it's all in the report. Hey, Jinwok. Thank you very much. Jinwok says his biggest jackpot was 15,820 in August 2019. Wonderful. But this news article in Harrisburg, they looked at a newly opened casino and the wonderful returns, the high returns, and what the limit was, and they just did a little expose on that with interview with me thrown in there talking about all the stuff that I talked with you about, and you can see that, it dropped. That first year was great. The second year, it's been below a certain limit ever since. And that's the sort of thing that you can see. If you are in a state which has a casino has been sold, I haven't gone and looked at the one in Horseshoe to see the reports from Ohio, but that can be a little difficult. I mean, the difficulty is, when was it sold? Nobody knows. I mean, maybe it's in the financial reports someplace, or maybe you get a W2G and see the names changed. And it's not like it's another owner. It's the bunch of owners, but one of them gained more than 50% ownership. So when that happens, I can feel it when I'm in the casino. I can say, wow, I'm not getting nearly, the jackpots. Now that it's a new owner, that's part of the reason why I'm not going there now, because the new owner just made changes. Sometimes it takes like a month because, they have to execute their plan at the new casino that they just bought. But 6 months later, when they finally put up the signs, it doesn't happen then. It happened back when it was purchased, a little after. So anyway, that's kind of answers your question. I always like to take a certain amount of time every show and try to answer these questions about halfway through. And let's see, we have, come on. Oh, 37 people watching, which is, great. So yeah, about halfway through, I try to answer these questions. All right. Right. So that was Michael. Rudy says his largest jackpot was $2,500 and his wife's was $6,500. It's not a competition, but she's winning. Richard from Western North Carolina. Richard and Lisa are listening. And I should have maybe selected that. Yeah. Right. Chuck says his personal best was his first hand pay. He made a 75-cent bet on a Mighty Cash Double Up. Mighty Cash Double Up paid $9K. And I want to try to share more of these comments for those of you in the watching the video later. So many comments, it's just flying by. Yep, there it is. Right. So Chuck told us about his. Yeah, thanks for sharing on this. Everybody, what's your biggest hand pay? Magpie, my casino now has my ID on file. Love this idea of prepaying and planning to win. Thank you. Having been through it, it seemed like an obvious thing to talk about. So he left after his $15,000 win, and they gave you a check. I will be talking about options in a moment. Rudy says he's had 2 hand pays and his wife said had 3 hand pays. Once again, not a competition, but she's winning. Yeah, Richard says my video and audio upgrades are better. Thank you. I was astonished to see what improvements a new computer can bring. I also like that's kind of different direction and all that. Right. So do I have any tips? Some guy 676 says, do I have any tips on winning progressive machines? I'll show that. Yeah, sure. If you go to my channel, I have to remember the numbers for them. I think it's strategy 2. And I talked for like 9 minutes about it. I've talked on an hour long on my live stream about it. So if you want to find those 2 videos, then you can get the answer. Yeah. Let's see. Jan says my highest hand pay. Oh, thank you, Magpie 11 for the $10 donation. Yeah, I'm in engineering, or was. I guess I still am. Always be an engineer, and that's one of the things that we'll sometimes say to each other. Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to do that. It's not a competition, but if it was, you'd be winning. They say you want to have particular turns of phrase if you want to have a good YouTube channel. Have fun, be safe, make good choices is one of them. I'm trying to add bang to the conversation, but I keep forgetting. But this whole it's not a competition line, if that's well liked, then maybe I'll make a new logo or something. Right. Right. So back through the live chat. Yeah, I like the idea that a casino has your ID on file. Wonderful. I mean, when you sign up to a player's card, you give them like your social security number in order to be able to issue a W2G. That's what I've experienced. They didn't really have my ID on file because I'd have to prove I was that person, right? So photo ID, they still need that, right? Oh, I suppose you would have your player's card. Right. So that was the progressive question. Jan says her highest hand pay was $2,950 on a Panda machine at Turkey Creek Casino in northern Michigan. Turkey Creek. I've been by. Awesome. Let's see here. David. Hi, David. My friend hit. When you say my friend, do you mean my friend hit $1.3 million jackpot, but he only bet 20 cents and only received $8,000. That was a few years ago. I imagine that's quite the story. One of the key things that I try to talk about here is how much did he spend? Sure, it may have been a 20-cent bet, but if he was trying to win that jackpot, I've heard stories from people where they were trying to win, play high limit, and they finally won $250,000. And I was like, over 10 years, and you're playing high limit, are you breaking even? But we have our hobbies, and there's plenty of people who have a hobby of riding a bicycle, and they got the $10,000 one because we put money into our hobbies. Right. So trying to make sure I share so you can see what I see. And that's David's comment. Richard says, when you see a slot machine freezes for a brief 5 seconds or less during a track mode, what could that be? A server command to change percent? No. You're using some of the terminology you've gotten someplace else. I don't talk about a track mode. I don't like using terminology nobody understands. It's just meant to be a catch-all. I like to be a little more specific. But sometimes you play a machine and there's a hesitation. It's, you don't get that on the penny machines. That's just because it's, whatever. It's a machine. I don't take it as a signal. One of the counter indications of what you're asking about, you're suggesting it could be a server command that changed the percentage. What I understand is that will never happen when you're playing it. And it's a technique that I use. It's one of the smaller ones. It doesn't have a number. I haven't given it a number. It's one of the techniques that I use is try to come in when there's low traffic and the casino's sort of set up for locals to win, and then I sit down on a machine and I don't change from that machine. I'll do my 20 bets, see if any of those, I'm winning something. And then I just never take a bathroom break. I never, move to another machine because I'm relying on them not being able to use the server to change it while I'm playing, because that's just a no-go area. My understanding is that's something they cannot do. Somebody has to get up, walk away. It might take a minute, might take 2 minutes. But if it's out of money and your card's not in it, then it only takes like a minute for them to go up. Let's update that one. We've been meaning to do that. It's all automatic, but not while you're playing. And I've used that to win because I sit down on a machine, which is a winner, and then it stays a winner from morning to afternoon to evening. And it wouldn't be a winner if I got up for 5 minutes and walked away. I'm using that technique. It's, again, not a numbered one, but it's, that's what I do. So some guys, 676. I wonder on the variance of the slots. Let me highlight this for you. Yep, I wonder on the variance of the slots. See, I'm glad you know about variance, because I try to explain to people. They're like, well, it's 75% in 75%. It's in 75% payout, theoretical payout limit in Nevada. What is it? 85 in Ohio and 85 in Pennsylvania. And people are like, well, it's 85. I'm like, no, it's not. It's a lower limit. There's actually a range. It could be anywhere above 85 in Ohio, and Pennsylvania says, well, above 85, but below 100. And so, that's, the casino completely uses that. Of course, people making an assumption that, well, they would just go right to the bottom of the limit. And I'm like, no, that's a terrible business practice. People walk away in disgust. They have to keep their business going. So the limit that the state provides in the gaming regulations, if they provide one, theoretical payout, usually isn't even used. I mean, they just stay above it, but they have their own business plan, which depends on that. So you had a specific question. I wonder on the variance of the stats. I live near parks, and it tends to be very tight. Dude, go check professorslots.com/abc27. That reporter, Owens, I think his name was, he had a few things to say about parks. And listen to the last like 30 seconds of that segment, because the two anchors kind of talk to each other and they say some pretty profound things. I don't know if they necessarily realized it as much, but about competition, casino competition, which is so important. Right. And get back to our topic, but let's see. Chuck says coming to Miami Villa later today. See you there. No, every week I work a lot of hours on this, and one of the things that I want to set up, and it's not just going to the casino because I want to record and I want to do something interesting. I want to ask certain questions. I want to do the assessment, and I thought, yeah, I'll start with Miami Valley. But if I were to go, it'd be like tomorrow morning, right? You tell me if they're having a promotion, and I'll definitely be there in the morning, right? But question is, how many are having promotions right now? Yeah, Miami Valley, the new Hard Rock Cincinnati, Boyd Gaming now owns Belterra Park, not the resort in Indiana, but the park next to outside of Cincinnati. And I'll just start from there. Geez, Charles. Let's see. So that answers that. Yeah, frankly, I don't really care so much about. Well, I have this friend who won $100,000 jackpot. Your friend's not here, so let's keep it real. Yeah, time clock strategy. Yep. Using kind of words that we haven't defined here. But that's a question. Sort of running out of time for questions. I need to move back to the topic for today. Wise Virgin asks, what's the lowest percent payout slot setting allowed internally? Every slot machine has a chip which is specific for the state it's going to be located in. I was talking to a used slot machine vendor, distributor, pretty big company, and they right. So they a little distracted there with some of the comments. So they told me, they explained to me, and it makes perfect sense, that if they want to move a used slot machine from one casino to another casino, like a convenience store or wherever they would need to move it, even take it from maintenance, if it leaves the state, they have to pull the chip, because you can't have a slot machine with that chip that's not for that state. I mean, it's that serious. So what's the lowest allowed? Whatever the state requirement is. If it doesn't have a state requirement, then, 0. But then that's what they could have, but they won't, because it's a terrible, people talk about, well, it just took my money. And I'm like, not really. You kind of spent your money. If you get a 75% return, and let's say that holds over a few bets, which is, usually it's a long series. On average, over time, you lose, 75% or 85%. But that doesn't mean, you have $100. Now you have $85, then you got $67, and then you got, you cycle through, and each time it's less, and you lose 75% and 75% and 75% and 75%, and you go home with no money. Now, interesting enough, it's like you spent like $1,000 if you do the math, which is interesting, but right. Let's see. There is a promo today. Yeah, so 60 cents in the morning, 60 cents, you know, in the morning tomorrow morning would be a great time. But I assume that, Saturdays and Fridays wouldn't normally have it. Sometimes I tell people, figure out if they're going to have a promotion. Um, but sometimes I'm like, well, every Friday or Saturday, it's almost guaranteed. Um, so, right. All right. So, okay. Uh, let's get back to where we left off. So imagine you're just won the biggest jackpot ever, and you have your ID. You might even have a player's card, club card, so your personal information is on file with the casino. Next up is the hand pay and more decisions. If you've never won a taxable jackpot before, no matter what size, right, put that away. No matter what size, the hand pay process is straightforward. You win a jackpot. The machine locks up. Sometimes the first thing you notice is the machine locking up, and then you notice that you won a jackpot. A slot attendant comes automatically. You do paperwork. Someone else shows up to verify the jackpot, and finally, you're paid. Now, there's details in there, and I go over this hand pay process when winning a automatically taxable jackpot playing slots. That's now both a video and website article. It's links to both will be in the video description and podcast show notes. For listeners, it's also way back in podcast episode number 7. For those of yes, I have a podcast. It's called Professor Slots. Feel free. For those of you who have already won jackpots under $10,000, there are some slight changes to this process when winning big jackpots, those over, which I'll call over $10,000. In most states, jackpots of $10,000 or more require that the jackpot verifier is not a slot attendant, but rather a floor manager. Tip number 1, I always try to give out these tips, right? There's plenty of things that I've said that are a tip, but I'm trying to be very specific about giving out tips on every show. Tip number 1, you can tip the slot attendant, and in my opinion, should, but you can't tip the floor manager. If they say it's okay, the floor manager will take a tip to put into the group tip jar back in the break room for all slot attendants. But typically, floor managers cannot receive tips. Tip number 2, this is your chance. This is your chance, your precious chance to meet a floor manager. It's a priceless opportunity. Get to know them. Make friends if you can. Floor managers know a lot more about what's going on in a casino than slot attendants. Ask questions. Be nice. Thank me later. If you do have another choice to make, however, for jackpots just over the taxable limit, but under $10,000, casinos may provide banded stacks of $5,000 when you ask for cash instead of a check. Other casinos only provide banded stacks of $10,000. I'm trying to get away from collecting those paper bands. Around $10,000 in hundreds, but it's been surprisingly difficult habit to break. There's, here's the 2 bands. Yeah, right. Here's the 2 bands I got for that $27,000 jackpot. After taxes, there was like 5,000 something after the 2 bands of $10,000. So that's what I'm talking about. But either way, for a large jackpot where you ask for cash, you can expect banded stacks, sometimes called bricks, of $100 bills. Personally, I found it's nice when a slot attendant counts out $100 bills in my hand. I have this little thing where I hold up my hand, they're putting $100 bills in it, and then I kind of do this, and sometimes, they'll chuckle under their breath. Sometimes they've seen everything, but other people might chuckle because, it's getting heavy. But try to have fun with it. Professionally, I advise you to take most or all of the jackpot as a check. I'm trying to break my bad habit. So this is if your plan includes requesting some or all your taxable jackpot in cash. It's really your choice, however. What's your plan again? Remember, preparation is key. If you do request cash and end up leaving the casino without spending it, I should mention what happens at a bank when you go deposit that $10,000 or more in cash. It's just the same as any other cash deposit, except for the currency transaction report, CTR. The CTR is a reporting requirement for U.S. financial institutions regarding all cash deposits, withdrawals, and currency exchanges of $10,000 or more. When making a deposit of at least $10,000, it will be reported to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, within the U.S. Treasury Department. FinCEN was created in 1990 and became its own bureau under the U.S. Patriot Act, passed in 2002. In part, it monitors and analyzes financial transactions for illegal transactions. This includes financial crimes related to money laundering and corruption. Over recent years, I've deposited more than $10,000 multiple times at my bank and never had a concern. They do ask where the money came from, to which I typically respond, I won it at the casino. I don't think you have any cause for concern, as earning money at a casino isn't an illegal transaction. My lack of concern here hinges on understanding that big jackpots generate my lack of concern is because big jackpots generate a W-2G tax form when won at a casino. So if FinCEN does become interested, within its own department, the U.S. Treasury is the IRS, and they can confirm that form was received for that roughly that amount of cash at roughly the same time. Nevertheless, I thought you should know about the CTR. It was kind of a surprise to me. This is what happens when you start dealing with larger amounts of money. There is another aspect to accepting a lot of cash you should probably be aware of. In my mind, it's more practically important than the CTR. It's this. How much cash can you carry? Let's say you're wearing a men's pair of jeans or trousers with typical size pockets. Let's further say you're not wearing a jacket or carrying any sort of purse. Finally, let's assume all your cash is in $100 bills. Under these circumstances, how much cash can you carry without it being in your hand or sticking out somewhere for anyone to notice? With a wallet in one pocket and a mobile phone in another, I've been able to tuck away 200 $100 bills. That's only $20,000 in all the pockets of a typical pair of men's jeans. Let's say you won a big jackpot, which you accepted as cash, and after taxes have $50,000 in hand. Or in my case, I had $25,000 in hand, and not all of it would fit. What do you do with it? Yes, you can fill all your pockets and with $20,000 of it. I've done it. But what about the remainder? Do you ask the casino to provide a brown paper bag, perhaps? I've been in this situation and faced this dilemma. Once again, make sure you have a plan in case you win. So I will show you this. Now, this is $100 bills. Excuse me, $1 bills, not $100 bills, $1 bills. And there's 100 of them to make this brick bundle, whatever you want to call it, $100. It's used bills. So if you were to get this at a casino, but instead be $100 bills, it would actually be a little thinner because they're mostly new bills. And so I have that for an upcoming video, and I'm going to take a look at the Gamble Box and the Win Bank 200, try to put something together to how much fits into those. And, $1 bill is the same size as a $100 bill. And that's why I don't have to withdraw $10,000. Who does that anyway? I know some slots players spend that much, but you drop this into your pocket, and you can tell by the size of my hand and whatever. That's quite a hefty amount, and you can get one in your front pocket on the left and one in your front pocket on the right. Maybe you can get a phone in there too, keys to your car. Well, in the back pocket, you can't put really men's jeans have much bigger pockets than women's jeans, but men's jeans, it still wouldn't fit. It's too tall. The back pocket is not deep enough to accept that. And if you fold it, well, that's obvious. So, shall we say? So, now, if you have a jacket and you got pockets, I've done that too, and just don't put too much in any one pocket. Anyway, so one final note about getting home. Feel free to ask the casino for security to walk you to your car. They're perfectly happy to do so. And like me, try to remember where you parked your car. Take it from me, it was surprisingly hard to remember that little fact when I was clutching tens of thousands of dollars in my sweaty hands that first time. It's just like, I'm sure it's around here somewhere. I still have to figure out how to handle shock. Anyway, one time so let's talk a little bit about income taxes. One time I was sitting 2 seats away from someone who looked like they had never been in a high limit slots room at a casino. You know the look, right? Do you know that look? Anyway, they looked both nervous and like they wanted to go. And like they're like, I'm spending so much money. That was $20 and that was $20. But they want to be there, and they're struggling. But suddenly, and it's always sudden, they won a $4,800 jackpot. I watched it come up. They just nodded to themselves and started hitting the cash out button, which naturally enough wasn't working because the slot machine had locked up due to winning a taxable jackpot. Automatically taxable jackpot. When the cash out button wouldn't work, they stood up, they're walking away, they were reaching back, tap, 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 and they're like, what's going on? So naturally, I tried to be helpful as I try to be helpful with you guys, and walked right into it. I said, oh, the machine's locked up because you've won a big jackpot. Don't worry, the slot attendant should be here any moment to help you with getting it as well as paying taxes. I was just trying to be helpful. I imagine you know what happened next. Taxes? As they became more and more upset, I tried to disengage from the conversation. Luckily for me, the slot attendant arrived right about then to save me. Slot attendants are great. Seriously, I always remember how upset this taxable jackpot winner was whenever I work with a slot attendant. It's is what I remember whenever I tip my slot attendant after winning my own taxable jackpots. So if or when you win a automatically taxable jackpot, I should try to say that automatically, it's all taxable, you'll be working with a slot attendant. I've already described what that is like, but let's discuss gambling income taxes for a moment. On Twitter, one of my 10,000 plus followers. Yes, I'm on Twitter. What do you think? At Professor Slots. That's my handle. So the one of my followers said the amount of the taxable jackpot needs to be raised. Right? The amount of the taxable jackpot needs to be raised. And my response was, why? It's still taxable, even if you don't get a W-2G hand pay. But I do appreciate the sentiment. I really do. I understand, end quote. I understand that, how do you, sorry, the animals are acting up. So, if it wasn't for the W-2G hand pay, many people might, I don't have actual numbers, I don't want to know, might not pay taxes on that gambling income. But if you win $10,000 or $60,000, you think the IRS is going to notice? I mean, when you deposit it, unless you keep it in your mattress or something, the cash in your mattress. But even then, the W-2G came through, and so you have to pay taxes on that, or you have to submit it. It is submitted for you. So if you win $10 at a casino, it's taxable income. This gets confusing fast though, because what if you spend that $10? If you win $10 at a casino, what if you spend that $10 in the next few minutes without it ever leaving the slot machine? Sometime later, we can talk about the more practical aspects of casino gambling and disconnects with general requirements from the IRS. We've had a conversation back in February on a live stream about that, just before tax season. And maybe that's the best time to go up come out with this, talk about this again before next April. So in brief, the IRS says all gambling income is taxable, and state gaming regulations usually say using an electronic device during gameplay is a felony. If it helps your slots, if it helps your play, it's a gambling device, and it's usually a felony. So how do you reconcile those two? Maybe you have idyllic memory. I don't. I've got a decent memory. I don't remember everything that ever happens, number after number after number after number, and there's 10,000 of them because I spent 8 hours in the casino. A practical compromise would be to record how much bankroll you walk into a casino with and how much winnings you walk out with, including the free market value of any gifts. At least doing this is possible. What isn't in dispute is what happens when the casino issues a W-2G income tax form reported directly to the IRS. That makes it all easy. If you choose to accept a taxable jackpot, then you will receive a W-2G, an automatically taxable jackpot. As an aside, some people can't afford or otherwise don't want taxable jackpots. For instance, my family friends, Lois and Dave, who are on the live stream, are in my article that I wrote when I went to their casino and they were their family friends. I have this article called Seminole Brighton Casino Florida Trip Report. It's also, for those listening on the podcast, episode 27. But Dave and Lois and Dave are from Canada and are often in the live chat. For them, any gambling income from their annual visits to U.S. casinos is foreign income and potentially subject to taxation by the Canadian government and may result in a change in their type of visa. Yikes. This is serious stuff. And apparently, as usual with income taxes, what to do is very individualized. My admittedly limited understanding is, and please don't consider me as any kind of expert with regards to international tax law, my Canadian friends can earn some income when gambling in the U.S., but not a lot of income. A $60,000 taxable jackpot may well be too much, may cause too difficult of a situation, and is therefore unwanted. Maybe. You can always choose not to accept a taxable jackpot. You can choose to walk away. An old slots joke is the only way to legally avoid paying taxes after winning a jackpot of $1,200 or more is simply to not accept the winnings. That's funny. Yes, it's funny but true. Also be aware that taxable limit is instead $600 in some states like Massachusetts, at least for the moment. Who wants that and why? Well, that's yet another topic we can talk about later sometime, especially if it becomes more common in other states. Finally, there are the tax choices you'll need to make when filling out the paperwork for the taxable jackpot with the slot attendant. A federal income tax withdrawal from your winnings is typically optional. State income tax withdrawal is very state dependent. Local income tax withdrawal exists if the casino you are at is located within a city's limits. Also, that's part of the hand pay. If you are in a city that has local taxes, but the casino is not, then you've got to work that out when annual tax preparation time. Other withdrawals on the hand pay may exist, such as a non-refundable 3% tax on jackpots over $1,200 in Mississippi, as imposed by state gaming regulations. If you keep good gambling records, it usually works out well to choose to not pay federal taxes. Why? Because keeping good gambling records means you'll have gambling deductions, federal, to apply during your annual income tax preparation. If you don't keep gambling records or federal gaming deductions aren't allowed due to your overall income, then you will need to always include a federal income tax withdrawal with every jackpot or suffer through an income tax payment burden when you eventually file your annual income tax return. If taxes, here we are talking about taxes. I'll keep this short. If you don't keep good gambling records, then frankly, you should start. Why? Because the danger of not keeping gambling records is having to pay income taxes when they could have been avoided. What if you win big? What if you win so big that everything changes? Isn't that why you're interested in my content? To succeed, to win more and more often? Keep gambling records just in case you win a massive jackpot. the gambling deductions become possible if you don't have enough income now to have that. We prepare to succeed. This is what we do. So, you could have one massive jackpot, or suddenly, use my techniques. You find out morning after promotions, works great at your casino. You found a casino where that works at. You know, so you might not win a $60,000 jackpot, but you might win lots of $1,200 hand pays, which, if you win 10 or 20 or 30 of those, begins to be equal to a large jackpot win. Make it part of your plan. Okay. Some time ago, a fan of my website and podcast named Richard from Gainesville, Georgia, contacted me via Twitter after he won a $60,000 slots jackpot. He took a check and immediately walked out of the casino. I was proud of how well he had handled it and told him so at the time. How he handled a big jackpot reminded me of what it was like. My first time, I didn't do as well as Richard. So we're talking about this now so you can do better than I did, and perhaps as well as Richard if you win a large taxable jackpot. So we are 1 minute over. I tried to talk a little fast. And Steve says, yep, thank you. You have a great day, everyone. It's wonderful to chat with you, and will have fun, be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks.